there are new developments coming out of Ukraine. Today, I talk one-on-one with 1st Congressional District candidate Katie Arrington for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Katie Arrington, welcome back to the award-winning Quintin's Close-Ups.
And thank you for having me. I've missed being with you.
Oh, glad to have you back. Obviously, you're a Republican candidate for the 1st Congressional District, and you're a wife and a mother. Who is Katie Arrington right now?
Katie Arrington is, and I'll add, I'm a grandmother now, Quintin.
That's right.
Little grandchildren. I am the Trump-endorsed candidate for South Carolina 1. I am an American First candidate. I want to go to Washington to serve my district. I believe in servant leadership. I'm going to Washington with that goal in mind, to prioritize the needs of the 1st Congressional District, which are, right now the most immediate needs. We have higher inflation than we've had in 70 years. I'm old enough to remember sitting in the car lines with Jimmy Carter as president and, waiting hours and hours for gas, and mortgage rates being around 17 to 20%. So we need to get that under control. I'm going to Washington to get gas prices under control so that families don't need to choose between feeding their families and filling up their tanks to go to gas. I'm going to Washington to make sure that the federal government gets out of our children's education. I'm going to Washington to build the wall, make our nation secure, fund our police departments, bring back national security. That's what I'm running for, and to represent the district.
What are the current gas prices in the 1st Congressional District?
So this morning, as I was driving in, it was $3.89 at the gas station I passed. And then there was one that, if you were a member, I think it was $3.59. But, in the Trump administration, we were enjoying the under $2 a gallon rate for gasoline. That's because our country was virtually energy independent. Right now, crude oil is trading at, I think this morning, at $110 a barrel. What that means to you, the U.S. citizen, is higher prices in everything across the board in the coming months, weeks, months, and potentially years. And we need to send people to Washington that are going to prioritize that. Unlike the representative, Nancy Mace, she has prioritized legalizing marijuana and decriminalizing marijuana. She has prioritized making sure panda bears don't go back to China. And she's prioritized pets' rights over the needs of the citizens. And we need to send somebody to Washington who's going to prioritize that.
How do you prioritize the local needs? What exactly are the local needs in the 1st Congressional District?
So first and foremost, Ms. Mace sits on the Transportation Committee. How come she didn't fight to get more money for our infrastructure? I have no idea, and that's definitely something that I would fight for in the federal budget. She didn't give any money to, stormwater, flooding issues. She didn't give any money to, federally helping with bridges. She sure didn't give any money to the port of Port Royal. This district spans down to the Beaufort, Bluffton, and Hilton area, and their economy is just as important as Charleston's. You represent the entire district. So she failed. She sold out the district. She sold out President Trump. She sold out the conservative Republican voter. Those things that I'm going up there to get are the needs. The next thing, we've got to get, infrastructure under control, but gas prices. Even though President Biden decided to shut down the Keystone Pipeline, she should have taken that point every time she was given a chance to speak on the media, to stay to those talking points. Instead, Ms. Mace has waffled and flip-flopped virtually every time. I'll give you an example. One morning, dressed in the same suit, she went to Fox and said that vaccine mandates and the masks were not needed, that the government had no business in your personal life, your health care. Then she went 5 blocks to CNN, got on there and said, masks are important and you should be vaccinated. Same outfit, same day, same thing at MSNBC. She flip-flops. And what we really need is somebody who's going to be a straight-up conservative vote in Washington every time. Nancy Mace voted to certify the elections. Quintin, you and I have known each other for years, and we have seen the federal government shut down over budget issues time and time again. In the Obama administration, we went sequestration, where they had no problem telling federal employees to take a 20% pay cut because the government couldn't agree. Why did Nancy Mace certify the election instead of sending it back to the states, giving a 30-day pause to do true and actual audits of the elections and certify a month later? Instead, she joined the swamp, voted to certify the elections, and denied, I say, 51% of the U.S. population a vote to have their voices heard. We need to send somebody to Washington who's going to understand what the district needs and how to be the appropriate voice for South Carolina 1.
And I wanted to get you back on Quintin's close-up to talk about those issues later on. But okay, let me ask you this: what bridges in the first congressional district right now need repair with that transportation money?
Oh my gosh, everybody but the Ravenel, because we just built the Ravenel. Every single one needs help. That's the challenge. You know, I went up after 2018. I worked in the Department of Defense as the Chief Information Security Officer. And what I will tell you is when government appropriates for a weapon system or, you know, a contract, just like the state, sustainment isn't on the top priority, right? That's not something that they think about. They think this bridge is great and it's great today, but they don't think, how do I build in resources to maintain that over the course of 20, 30, 40 years. And that's one thing that, you know, being a part of the department, I saw, you know, our weapon systems are in, you know, and our critical infrastructure to which we depend upon for our national defense are in critical disrepair because we turned our back on them. So I know how to fix the problem. I went to Washington and did it in the Department of Defense and made a lot of partners within the current Congress and Senate to help make that happen. The list is long, though, Quintin. I could go on for hours and hours about the bridges here. There, you know, I stood on 526 Bridge, you know, with Nancy Mace when we had the horrible events of, gosh, that was in 2018. And if it can happen there at the Don Holt, it can happen anywhere, right? So we need to be able to put the resources, but in that infrastructure bill, the Build Back Better plan, less than 13% of it went to actual infrastructure. It was more about, you know, bigger government and expanding social programs, not about what infrastructure means, and that's roads, bridges, stormwater, etc.
Yes, ma'am, and I'm going to get you back this summer to talk about all of that, and I hope to get Nancy Mace's side of what you just said as well. But I wanted to bring you on Quintin's close-ups to talk about, obviously, Russia, Ukraine. In a tweet you said recently, you said this, quote, "The blame for what we're seeing in Ukraine lies at the feet of Joe Biden and weak-boned Republicans like Nancy Mace, who voted to certify the election results." Let me ask you this, Katie. What about the man who decided to send the troops into Ukraine? What is your definition of personal responsibility?
For Putin?
Yes, who sent the troops?
I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
For Putin?
Yes, ma'am.
Putin definitely, he holds responsibility, right? But he was emboldened. This is not his first time doing this, folks. Let's look back over history, right? So when he had an opportunity during a lame duck presidency, as President Bush was leaving office, and it looked very much like Obama was going to win the election in 2008, Putin shut off the nation state of Georgia and invaded. And he did it again in 2014 under Obama. He didn't do a thing during President Trump's administration. Why? Because he knew, you know, there's peace through strength, right? And Biden doesn't know what that means. Biden has, you know, he's more concerned about, you know, his financial resources for him and his family than he is about world or national safety. You keep forgetting Hunter Biden, you know, and Burisma. He is more concerned about making sure he doesn't make Putin mad than he is about defending. So Putin took an opportunity. He's an opportunist. He's a predator. And he went and he preyed on Ukraine. And he thought they were weak. And I just have to say, look at the people of Ukraine. Look at the bravery. Look at the patriotism. Too bad they don't have the Second Amendment, because it would have been a lot easier if they had weapons at their disposal. But the thing that will sit in my heart, Quentin, is that 80-year-old woman that was standing on the border of Russia and Ukraine throwing out sunflower seeds as the Russian soldiers were invading. And they asked her, "Why are you doing this?" And she said, "Where your body falls, I want flowers to grow." Putin is an opportunist. He's a bully. And we have a weak president that doesn't know how to stand up to him. A weak president that let Afghan fall. We left the playbook. I worked in the Department of Defense. We have a playbook. And Biden threw that out the window, hasn't looked back. And, the Trump policies, some people may not like the mean tweets, but the policies of the America First agenda not only made the United States safer, it made the world safer. And what you're seeing right now, when you have people like Nancy Mace, who allow to certify an election to allow the weakest and worst president in U.S. history take office, that's a sad day. And we need to send strong conservatives back in 2022 so that we can have the right people in place in 2024 when we take back the Oval Office to take our country back.
Now, let me go back to the tweet that you said. You said this quote, "The blame for what we're seeing in Ukraine lies at the feet of Joe Biden and weak-boned Republicans like Nancy Mace, who voted to certify the election results." But isn't this undermining the U.S. democracy during a time of crisis?
No, not at all. Not at all. We're not at crisis.
The world.
We're in a financial crisis. We are in a inflation crisis.
Okay, I think you broke up just a little bit, but let me
put it to you. Can you hear me?
Oh no, I lost you there for like 20 seconds.
Okay, so it absolutely is on the blame of Joe Biden and Nancy Mace. And no, it is not against being a patriot, being, proud to be an American, to say that when your vote to bring in a weak president, you knew he was a weak president, you watched him campaign from a basement. Do you think that person is really certified to lead this nation? So I take what you're saying, but our Constitution, the fact that they had the right to certify or not certify the votes, right? They could have sent them back to be audited. And we wouldn't be in this position if they had done that. Putin would not have made the moves that he has made in Ukraine. Afghan would not have fallen. Our gas prices wouldn't be at where they are. Inflation wouldn't be at a 70-year high. We would not be where we are right now. Hence, people like Nancy Mace, we sent her to Washington to do a job. And instead of that, she went about promoting herself and creating a brand. We need someone who's going to prioritize the district, prioritize the nation, and make the hard decisions to ensure our republic has the opportunity to continue at the rate that we're going right now. If we continue down this path, I'm afraid of what I'll be turning over to those 4 grandchildren. I'm actually terrified.
But Katie, hasn't Putin been planning to invade Ukraine for years?
He's been planning to do a lot of things, and the only thing that deterred him, right, he's done it in weak administrations. He didn't do it during Trump. I was in the Pentagon. I was the chief information security officer. I can tell you Putin was afraid of Donald J. Trump, and he is not afraid of Joe Biden, nor was he afraid of Obama.
Now, Russia has reportedly said that since the 1990s that if Ukraine were to join NATO, that it could lead to war. As it is, Russia feared the growth of democracy in that particular region. What could be Putin's other fears when it comes to Ukraine?
Putin's what?
What could be Putin's other fears about Ukraine?
Why? Oh, well, he believes in expansion, right? He believes that it was unjustly taken. But, he's been saying this for a long time, right? This is not something new. But you need strong U.S. diplomatic leaders to ensure things like what's going on right now don't happen. Think about it. 4 years of President Trump, 4 years of peace. In every other administration, we had elected politicians, not patriots, into office. And when you elect a patriot, you get a different result altogether. So I have to say that, Putin may have been planning. The opportunities showed up only in weak administrations where there's power and peace. That doesn't work. There's power and strength. And what Putin understands is strength. And he understood Donald J. Trump represented strength. Katie Arrington represents strength.
President Trump reportedly willing to pull out of NATO, reduce the United States force presence in Europe, and did pull out of the Open Skies Treaty. Why isn't he also responsible for what's going on right now in Ukraine?
So President Trump, in regards to NATO, we as U.S. taxpayers have been footing the vast majority of the bill of NATO. It is up to every participating nation to present, I believe it's 3% of their GDP towards NATO, and countries weren't doing that. So President Trump said, listen, the U.S. taxpayer isn't responsible for global peace, okay? They're a part of it. We all have to own our part of it. And what he said was, pay up your fair share or we're out. I 100% agree with that. Quintin, how much money do you make that you're willing to give to make sure that there's global peace across the ocean versus feeding yourself and taking care of yourself and your family? You know, Trump put America first, and the blame solely lies on those people who don't want America first. They believe in globalism. You know, when you get on an airplane, Quintin, the flight attendant who is there not to offer you a beverage and a snack, but is there to ensure your safety in an event of an emergency and to make sure that you're safe. And what does that flight attendant say to you? An oxygen mask will be dropping down from the ceiling. Put it on yourself before helping others. And President Trump was about getting America first so we can be in a better place to help others. And that's all that he was doing. So no, I do not believe that there is any blame on President Trump. Germany, if you really want to look at who was the root cause of how this came about so quickly, back in, I want to say it was 2019, President Trump met, and I can't remember the date, if it was 2019 that he met with Germany, and he point blank said, you are buying 70% of your natural gas from Russia. You are going to regret this decision. Do not do this because you are making Putin rich and you are giving him power. You are being submissive to the Russian dictatorship. Communism, folks, after the Cold War, everyone was like, well, communism isn't that bad. Any ism, socialism, communism, they're bad news, right? And Putin is a communist, so is Xi in China. And President Trump was just trying to tell the world, don't ever put your eggs all in the basket of somebody that has an ism in their name.
Is NATO weakened?
Is NATO weakened? In what regard? Financially, militarily, strength, what?
Yeah. Is NATO weakened by what's going on right now in Russia? Well, in Ukraine, I should say.
No, NATO's poised to present. They could have been better poised to support, but right now what we should be focusing on, right, is making sure that Ukraine can fight for themselves and that they have the supplies and resources to do so. We don't want to send any U.S. soldiers on the ground. This is Ukraine's battle to fight. We need to support Ukraine in ways that we can. Supplies, working to get, people like countries like Germany to turn and refuse to buy gas from the Soviet Union, Russia. Those are things that our diplomatic power should be doing right now. The sanctions are somewhat of a joke that Biden submitted. The fact of the matter, and I'm I was the CISO of the DOD, and I can tell you, Putin doesn't care about SWIFT banking, right? He doesn't care about it. He's been dealing in cryptocurrency, which is not in the purview of the SWIFT. So, and that's how a lot of terrorist organizations, that's how a lot of black market works, that's how a lot of the sex trafficking work is in cryptocurrency. So putting a sanction on banking is kind of like, pouring water on a 7-alarm fire, right? It makes no impact. And it takes too long to actually make an impact. What you need to do is lean on your diplomatic, and if we had a strong president, would be on the phone with the Chancellor of Germany and other countries saying, stop your purchase today, stop the money flowing into Russia, lessen his opportunity to continue this ridiculous tirade, and go back home.
Now, okay, so wouldn't sanctions for 4 years prior to this administration could have prevented what's going on right now in Ukraine?
So we've always had sanctions on Russia. And we were and I can tell you in the Department of Defense, we worked on our sanctions with Russia. They were very strategic. But we can only do so much. The United States has always had Russia in, I would say, control, right? President Trump able to decrease Russia's economy by making us energy independent and not relying on Russian oil or natural gas. Biden, on the other hand, when he came to office, he shut down the Keystone Pipeline. He sent a very loud message to Putin that said, hey, we're willing to buy. It'll not only line my pockets, but my son's as well, and went and supported the Nord Stream being reopened. Trump spent 4 years strategically cutting that off from Putin. So the sanctions have always been there. It's the other countries that were definitely more important on this. The fact that we were energy independent, our sanctions were working effectively.
Yeah, lost you there once again. But let me ask you then, why didn't the current president, Joe Biden, just end the Nord Stream pipeline?
Why?
Yes, ma'am.
Because he's a weak president and he didn't have a plan. There was no strategy. You shut down the Keystone Pipeline. So then where do you get your oil and your gas reserves from? You go back to where we were before. Biden is the weakest president in U.S. history. He has absolutely the worst record in any president in U.S. history. And he's running, that's why I say, tell me that a man who had 12 people show up for a rally versus a gentleman who, after, the election has subsided, brings 50 to 70,000 people to rallies. That was a president. Biden, it's sad what he is. It's just sad. And what he shows on the national stage, from falling asleep at the UN meeting to, letting Russia run through Ukraine without stopping him and being a force to say, don't do that or you'll have to be reckoning with us. And Afghanistan. Let's look at what Joe Biden has done. But this election cycle isn't about Joe Biden, right? It's not, right? This election cycle and what you and I are talking about is the 1st Congressional District. And who is representing us up in Washington, and who is going to make the right decisions and prioritize for this country. And I can tell you very clearly that Nancy Mace is not the individual that should be making decisions. She hasn't prioritized the needs of the district. She has been out about creating her own brand. I want to go to Washington to prioritize the needs of the 1st Congressional District, to get a hold of inflation, to lower gas prices, bring them back down, to get our children's education back in the hands of the parents, and to make our nation secure again. We are the least secure we have been in several generations.
Yeah, I lost you again. I'm so sorry about all of this, but I'm hoping to get you back on before the summer to talk more about all of that you just mentioned there. Let me get you back to Russia, Ukraine. If the United States had given up its democracy, do you believe Putin wouldn't feel so threatened by democracies?
If we had given up democracy or Ukraine?
Yes, ma'am. You can talk about that as well.
I don't understand the question.
If the United States had given up its democracy, do you believe Putin wouldn't feel so threatened by other democracies?
Why would we ever give up our democracy? Why? That is what our nation is founded upon, the republic, a democracy. The world craves to be as free as we are. Why would we ever consider giving that up for a communist regime where the individual doesn't matter? So I don't, not to be disrespectful, Quintin, because I think you're amazing, but the question is somewhat, it's, why would we give up our democracy? That's our founding fathers. This is what we believe in, the republic, that every voice, every individual matters in this country, and that one dictator should not, dictate for the nation.
Didn't Putin and Russia needed years to be financially stable enough to get to this point?
Russian economy has never been huge. You just remember, right? Their economy was the equal of, I believe, Rhode Island or Italy. They've never been a major superpower as far as money. Where they've been a superpower has been in natural elements, minerals and gas and oil. The oligarchs have gotten very rich. The people of Russia have not gotten very rich. That's the problem with communism, right? And a dictator. So it's his strength is in his military might and the fact that he's, a dictator. They're bad, right? Any dictator is bad. Any one person that thinks that they are better than everyone else in the country leading a country is bad. Total power corrupts completely. And Putin is an example of that. He is a narcissist. He is an opportunist. He is a predator. And the only time in U.S. history that, he has been held in check is with President Trump, who was a bigger person, stronger, more determined, and willing to take Putin on. And, Biden, not so much, nor Obama. They weren't willing to take to take Putin on the hard issues. But, back to, South Carolina one, I don't want to learn Russian and I don't want to learn Chinese, Mandarin, right? I love being a U.S. free citizen, and I cherish that our republic and that our democracy is here. And I'm going to fight to maintain that.
Now, is Cold War II here already?
So we have been at cyber war for quite some time with other countries. That's been going on. So I say right now we are on the brink of 3 wars, right? We're in the middle of a cyber war that's been going on. The Ukraine, I firmly believe we will not physically get involved, but we really need to look at what's going on in Taiwan. I say a lot of this is noise. Don't pay attention to the noise. Focus in on the issues. China looks at what we have done in Afghan and how we have dealt with Ukraine, and China is emboldened right now, to make a move on Taiwan, which if that were to happen, I have no doubt that would start World War III.
How should the United States and the supporting countries cut off Russia's economy?
Stop buying gas.
How should the United States guard its friends during times like this?
Supply them with what they need so that they can continue to fight on their own.
Do you believe, Katie, that Putin actually has an alliance with China?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and how should Germany establish a stronger relationship with the United States?
Shut off the gas from Russia. Stop buying it from Russia. Period. End of sentence.
How should the United States help Germany with its energy suppliers?
Help them get good negotiated rates through other means. And there are tremendous other means. What would be really awesome is if we had the Keystone Pipeline open, we could help them. We would be in a position as U.S. to help Germany directly. But since President Biden turned that off, we don't have that opportunity.
Who or what is strengthening Russia's economy?
All of the people buying minerals and gas from them. All of the
countries. How should the United States go about growing its own energy sector?
So open the Keystone Pipeline back up. Continue to look at new and diverse ways to create energy. I worked in the Department of Defense on, micronuclear reactors. We need to look at, other sources. Tidal flow is a huge conversation piece. You put up a wind turbine, it causes a great deal of radiation overflow. It's disruptive to the wildlife in the area. It also changes, they can't put wind turbines near radar because it skews the radar. So wind turbines are good on a windy day that they're not in an area where there's a potential for disruption. Solar is a good idea except for the fact that the batteries don't retain enough of the solar power, and their batteries themselves are more caustic than fuel, right? People forget how caustic a battery is to create, and the fact that batteries don't go away, they're forever. They have a worse carbon imprint than fossil fuels. People don't think about the after effects. So solar energy is good if it's a sunny day and you're at home, but there's really not a good way to harness that energy. I would look to different things like, tidal flow and hydroflow, water. Water is something that, the tide moves in and out every single day, thank God. It's nothing that's dependent on weather, and we should look at things. But we have all the resources we need right in the United States. President Trump showed us that. We were energy independent in his administration, and we need to get back to that.
Now, how should the United States sanction Russia's energy?
Well, we can't. Well, we did that. President Trump did that. He actually had cut off the Nord Stream pipeline using several treaties with multiple countries and made it very, very difficult. President Trump did that. President Biden lifted all of those treaties. He removed those protocols that we had put in place to basically throttle Russia's capability. So once again, this lies at the feet of Joe Biden. Bad policy, Joe Biden's policies, have led us directly here. Nancy Mace voted to certify the election to bring Joe Biden into office. So the blame sits on Nancy Mace and the people that voted to certify this election and Joe Biden's failed policies.
And I hate to be redundant, Katie, but what exactly does the 2020 election results have to do with Russia and Ukraine right now?
So if President Trump was still in office, we wouldn't be having this discussion, Quintin.
Okay. Katie Arrington, thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
Welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups, and I'll have you back later this summer to talk some more about the issues in the district.
Thank you so much, Quintin. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you.